Hey, happy Tuesday. We are back, and this week we are walking through a picture of a biblical woman. What does it mean to be a woman? How do you know when you're no longer a girl and you are a woman who has what it takes to honor God and be helpful in this world? And yesterday we talked about the reality that our world bases so much of a woman's value on their looks or their jobs, whether it's a stay-at-home mom or being super successful in a career. And we don't want to do that. So a real woman rejects worldly identity. Before I go into what the E is for a real woman, R-E-A-L, let me share again with you another rite of passage. This is in a particular culture in the world. This is how the women go from being girls to women in this culture. In Surma, S-U-R-M-A, in the Surma tribe of Ethiopia, young women undergo a rite of passage that involves the insertion of lip plates. Around puberty, a girl's lower lip is pierced and progressively stretched to accommodate larger clay or wooden plates. The size of the lip plate is often associated with a woman's bride price and is considered a symbol of beauty and social status within the tribe. So as I read this, it's funny because my first thought is like how bizarre that is and how unattractive it would be. They're at least in my eyes, they're these giant plates in their lips. And then as I was thinking that, I was thinking, man, that's just like taking Botox injections to the next level. So puffy lips are apparently valued around the world, but in some cultures, that is your transition from girlhood to womanhood. I'm going to move on before I get myself in trouble. So a real woman, we talked yesterday about how a real woman rejects worldly identity. So ladies, you do not need to shove wooden clay pots or pieces of wood or Botox into your lips to become a woman. A real woman rejects worldly identity. Secondly, a real woman expects God's greater reward. A real woman expects God's greater reward. Jesus says in Matthew 6:19 through 21, do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. In Hebrews 11:6, it says that without faith, it's impossible to please God. And so many of the things that you're going to have to do in this world are what we would call short-term sacrifice for long-term reward. You might be going through a period of loneliness in your life. And so it feels like, man, it'd be really good to have a boyfriend right now. It'd be really good to have somebody in my life, but there's nobody around that meets my standards. And so I'm so lonely. I'm so desperate. I'm going to compromise my values to meet this need of loneliness. You are sacrificing, if you do that, you're sacrificing long-term reward for short-term gain. And a real woman, and really a real man, the E is the same for both of them, expects God's greater reward. You need to be willing to have discipline in the short term, sacrifice in the short term, giving up of yourself, and even giving up of some of your, what our country would call your rights, certain freedoms you would have, in the short term for God's long-term reward. And that is it's weird, anti-American concept sometimes, the giving up of your rights. But the thing is, I'm voluntarily giving up my rights. Why? Because I belong to Jesus. And ladies, do you have the American freedom to date whoever you want? Sure. Do you have freedom in the Lord to date whoever you want? No, I don't believe so. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago on the podcast on, can I date an unbeliever? Or even a believer who is not following Jesus. A real woman expects God's greater reward. What does that mean? It means that any sacrifice, any discipline, any output that you do now for the sake of God, you trust that he's going to reward. God will not be a debtor to you. There's a verse in Proverbs that I love that says, he who is generous with the poor lends to the Lord and God will repay him. That's kind of crazy to think that you could lend money to God. You do so by being generous to the poor. What does that mean? I'm expecting God's greater reward, that I'm going to be generous now and God is going to take care of me in the long run. So ladies, if you want to be the best version of you that you can, if you want to be the kind of version of you that God says, well done, good and faithful servant, Starts with rejecting worldly identity, and then you make short-term sacrifices. You show discipline today so that you can have reward and freedom in the future. Something that comes to my mind when I just think about relationships. I've heard somebody say, to catch a prize, you've got to be a prize. To catch a prize, you've got to be a prize. To catch a man of high value, you have to be a woman of high value. To catch a woman of high value, you have to be a man of high value. If you want to see God's reward in your life, even far beyond relationships, far beyond boyfriend, girlfriend, marriage relationships, just rich relationships in general, you got to sacrifice. You got to put others before yourself. You've got to seek first the kingdom of God and trust that all these things will be added to you. So, ladies, be a real woman. Expect God's greater reward. Guys, look for this in women. And both of you, think of people in your life that do this. Think of women in your life that you have seen exhibit this quality. And I want you to encourage them in it so that they see that the Lord sees and that others see, and they will keep doing it more. Expect God's greater reward. And I expect you to come back tomorrow to hear what the A in a real woman is.